Hi guys. Okay, this photo comes from Nedra. She's a photographer friend of mine, and she had asked me to try to work on this for her and give her an idea as to how to modify this picture or how I would do it. So I've already figured out which edit I wanted to use. So this is the original, and I have been playing with this just to kind of get us in the fast forward mode. And I chose to use this version of a preset. So I'm going to use this matte type of base, if you will, and then I changed the temperature to be a little bit cooler. So I went up here to my temp and I made it from a yellow to a -17 blue. Then I adjusted my exposure. I increased it by 1.65. And then I also increased my contrast so I have a nice clear crisp photo. And then I edited my vignette. I I used a preset for that and it gave me, I'll go down to it for you here. Let's see. Oops. All right. I used a light vignette on this one. But what I like to do is I like to come over here under my effects and I like to edit the vignette myself because I like to have my midpoint like virtually invisible, which that brings it from the center all the way out, and I increase my roundness to 100% and I increase my feather to 100%, not my highlights. And then I can mess with the vignette myself because it's a very subtle effect and it gives it a nice depth of field look. I don't like to see that oval. That is something that I don't care for. From there, I wanted to zoom in just slightly here, and we're going to play with the wrinkles or the different shadows that are being cast on her face. I have chose my skin smooth, and I'm going to minimize my brush a little bit, and I'm just gonna brush around her eye here, around this eye as well, and over the bridge of her nose, and some of these pores in her forehead. And it's a very subtle change. I'm going to increase my brush here in the forehead because we have a larger area and I don't want it to be spotty looking. So I'm going to increase my brush so that it's a very soft look. And then I'm going to decrease it and come down here by her jawline. And I'm going to just kind of run this along her jaw, like we're painting a light onto her face. And remember, if this is too much, you can always change the flow. Okay, now I'm going to click New, and I'm going to stay with the same brush, and I'm going to go over some of the same areas that I went over before. Basically, same thing, it's just adding in a little bit more for me. I want to keep her personality here. I don't want to make her look waxy. But I do want to, lighten this just a little bit for her. Who doesn't like to look a little bit younger, huh? If I could walk around with a Photoshopped face all day, I would. Okay, so I think that that will work. I'm going to add maybe just a little bit more up here by her hairline. Okay, and now I'm going to zoom in just a tad bit. Now I'm not working with the raw original file, so you're going to see a little bit of loss here, but we can still get the idea of what we're trying to go for. Now I have purchased these fun brushes um, that allow me to add lashes and liner, which is really fun because I'm gonna darken up her eyeliner just right here, and as you can see it just looks like eyeliner. Super cool. Now that might be a little bit much, so I'm gonna change my flow while I still have that selected, and it'll change that flow for me. You can tell that it's changed it. You can also change the size that I originally had. Add a little bit more back in there. And if you ever get too much of a brush and you're just like, whoa, not a big deal. You're just going to simply choose your eraser and you're going to go over it. Now another neat thing about using the brush tool is if you minimize this little arrow right here, you can also increase the amount similar to the flow. So if I go to 100, she's going to have very, very black eyeliner on. And if I take it back down, then it's a lot more subtle. And that's obviously what we're going for. We want that subtle. So I'm going to push my space bar. I'm going to come over here to her other eye, and I'm going to add a little bit under this eye as well. I have a little bit of a delay here, I'm sorry. Not sure why. I'm going to add a little bit to the top of her eye, just a tad. Okay, and I'm going to go with the new brush. Still sticking with my eyelash enhancer because I feel like that wasn't enough, so I'm just going to kind of go over it again. I'm going to zoom out and see what we've got. As you can see, that really helps her eyes to pop. I feel like I want to lessen a little bit on this side. So I'm just going to go in here. Oh goodness. Sorry, we're bouncing all around here. Not sure why. Technology. Sometimes it just doesn't keep up. Okay. I'm going to go back into the original point that I was doing, which was here. And I'm going to decrease my flow just a tad on this side. Click done. I'm going to zoom back out. There. I feel like that's a little bit more even than what we had originally. Okay. So I'm liking the way that her face has turned out. Now we're going to work a little bit with some gradients because this is really heavy over here with light. So I'm going to start my gradient back here and just pull in so I have a nice gradual gradient going on. Okay, and I'm not going to use my portrait eyelash liner for there. I will want to use my exposure. And it has decreased it automatically on its own. I feel like it's a bit much. So I'm going to back off of that a little bit. Remember, if you don't want to be straight up and down, you can always angle it by grabbing the middle bar and rotating that. Okay. Don't be afraid to add more than one gradient. You can do that. And we'll just show you by example. I'm going to move this down by grabbing the center point. I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to click new. And I'm going to grab another side here, and I'm just going to bring that one down just like I did the other one. So we have two different gradients. We can manipulate those any way we want. We can move them around any way we want. Change the exposure anyhow we want, or anything else that you want. Same with the angle. Okay, so I'm going to click done. And that's good. We've lost a little detail here in her hair, so we're going to see if we can bring that back a little bit. Again, keep in mind you need to pay attention to what you have selected over here. And I want to darken. I want to have a nice soft brush, so I'm going to make it pretty large, and I'm going to brush this onto her hair and see what we got. Okay, we don't have much change, so we're going to manually change that exposure just a little bit at a time. Maybe we missed a little bit of painting downtown. We can also decrease the highlights. That would help a little bit as well. You can increase the contrast a little bit. But remember, we don't want to do things so intensely that it takes away from the rest of the photo, or it doesn't match the rest of the photo. So I'm going to be okay with that. So I'm going to click done. Now, I don't like this gray down here on her shirt, so I'm going to take another brush, and I'm going to find my white brush. And I'm going to just whiten this up a little bit more. So what that's going to do is that's going to take away some of that shadowing that we got when we added our gradient brush down there. Now it still has a little bit of a bluish tone, and this side has more of a yellow, so we're going to take away some of that blue by adding some yellow. We don't want to add too much to where she's got a yellow spot on her shirt, but we want to add enough to where it gets rid of that blue tinge. And if that doesn't work, let's modify our gradient. So this is my gradient I want to modify, so I'm just going to drag that down a little bit. And I'm going to rotate. Okay. I'm going to add just a tad bit more cool. And that's too much, so I'm going to go back up to the yellow a little bit. And I'm going to a little bit more exposure. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty. I'm going to work with her eyes just a little bit because they are very dark, and I want to lighten them up again. like I've said in previous tutorials, I don't like it when people look like they have marbles for eyes. So I'm very careful when I do lighten up eyes because I don't want them to be fake looking. So I will increase my exposure tab and wait for it to catch up with me. There we go. I did not capture both of the eyes, so I'll go over that again. Increase the exposure a little bit more. I will contrast them. A tad bit more saturation. And bring down the clarity just a tad. I feel like the clarity is what gives it the marbly look, and I don't care for that. I feel like we've got a little bit of that going on in her right eye, so I'm going to bring that down just a tad. There we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm happy with this, and we're going to zoom back out, and let's check out the before and after. Okay. So some of you may not like the cooler look. If it's too much magenta for your shadows, then you can always go to green, and that will warm it up a little bit as well. Of course, you can always increase the yellow back up. I prefer the cooler in this example, but again, everything is subjective. You can always play around with it and figure out what it is that you like to do, how you like to have your photos styled and edited. So hope that helps you, and if you have any questions, as always, you can contact me at info@gearyphotography.com. Have a great day.